Just so you know, like, you can say that to
Just
me.
so you know,
you can't say that to anyone.
He was giving us like step-by-step updates about his marriage falling apart.
There are certain boundaries that I am still learning how to set, and there are certain boundaries that I can easily set. That's an easy boundary for me to set. I don't want it. I just want to laugh. Ha ha ha. That was weird.
What's good? Welcome back. We are not for everyone. Just shut the fuck up. Hey, let me just finish what I'm supposed to say. We're an existential commentary podcast hosted by one hater and one lover. Okay, this is the problem.
Tell me what the problem is.
Jess is laughing at me because every time I do the intro, like, as much as I love to blab and love to improvise, I cannot, the stress I feel trying to nail the intro and do justice by this language, I can't improvise it. So I'm reading every time. I just read like this sentence that Jess prepared and wrote out. And there's nothing about it I can improvise. I can't even, she was making fun of me for just saying, hey, every time. Like, one time she wrote out, hey, welcome back, blah, blah, blah. And I'm incapable of not reading the hey or improvise. So this time you got a what's good.
I just didn't expect it to be what's good. I thought it was going to be hi. I thought it was going to be a little more standard. You went from hey to what's good. Like, you were like, I'm really going to innovate this time to prove to her that I can do it.
Right.
And it took me off guard, but I know you're an improviser. I know
I'm an innovator.
You are an innovator. It is just funny though, because like obviously the existential commentary bit is the part we want to say every time. The hey, welcome back was just like placeholder language for us to know. You know what I mean? And you just run with it.
Thank God you didn't write placeholder greeting here, because that's what I'd be reading. It's like
I have
the
two
Anchorman
comments.
And telecom.
Yeah. Yes, that was my first comment, was the Anchorman
teleprompter. Yeah.
You are Ron Burgundy. And my second comment is that I once for work drafted an email for other people to send. And I wrote like what the subject line should be, what the email should be. And somebody copy pasted it in the subject. I said like in parentheses or something like insert client specific thing here. And the person literally copy pasted that in the subject and sent it to the client without filling in the information. I was like, can you think for 2 seconds? You're getting paid 6 figures, 3 figures, LOL. In that case,
you're getting paid $112 a year. Please.
In that case, do whatever the fuck you want. You're just trying to get by. But no, I was like, you are a professional at this big company. Figure it out. It like took me off guard for the whole week. I was so mad.
That's 1,000% something that I would do. That to me is just a symptom of being like, my brain is not in this job. But do you remember, was there blowback? Was there like, did the client say anything?
No, apparently it was like a really chill client who
didn't
notice anyway.
It's pretty rough.
There was no blowback other than people on my team were like, welcome to marketing. Like, this is how it works. The people at the company that you're writing this marketing stuff for are never gonna understand it exactly the way. And you can spell it out for them and like feed it to them on a silver platter and they're still not going to get it. I was like, okay, well, good thing I don't care about this job either.
You think you don't care? I don't care. Like, it's just a competition and I win. In the game of who cares least, I win.
Trust me. But I don't know. I still care about doing a good job.
I get you, girl. I received an email like that. It wasn't a big deal. It was, I can't remember who it was from, but somebody had me on somewhere and I guessed it on something and they like sent a thank you email that was like
template.
Please. Yeah. Templated and they forgot to take out the bracketed like custom compliment to their channel here.
Oh God.
But when I see that, because that is so something that I mean, anyone can send that. It didn't affect, like, I don't feel anything about it. I just felt like, oh man, I feel for you, you know?
Yeah, no, that's true. And I don't judge that either.
I was like, I hoped that they didn't see it. I was like, oh, that's a bad day for them if they see it.
Yes, I don't judge it on the receiving end, but on the sender side, especially as the person that's writing a lot of this language for other people to send,
you have to
resign.
Makes
me feel like, did I not do a good enough job communicating this as the person that like drafted this for you or templated it, like it made me kind of like, I feel like I did everything I could to make this clear and you still didn't get it. Like, what am I missing? So that was very specific to being in the role that I'm in at my company. But yeah, when I see it on the receiving end, I'm like, okay, whatever. We all make mistakes. I feel like there's too much putting people on pedestals in the world, like in corporate America, outside of corporate America. I feel like we just expect people to be perfect and like, I don't know. We think that people who are leaders and like bosses and stuff are like these people that we should revere and they do no wrong. And there's just this attitude of like reverence around leadership and
it's funny. It is so
corporate
funny.
prowess.
And because I guess like the more of a leader you become, the more there is this feeling that you can't show any weakness, that you can't show any humility, even humility, that you can't show like self-doubt. But obviously like self-doubt and questioning yourself and that kind of humility is like a really important part of being a good leader. But it gets harder and harder to show that, or I think for people to remember to show that, and also to see that in the people you're looking up to.
Oh, go ahead. Actually, go ahead.
No. I had nothing to say.
Oh,
I'm just talking. I'm just still talking.
Yeah, I feel like I notice that all the time in different ways at work, like at my current job, at past jobs. And it's something that for whatever reason, I feel like I've almost never been that way. I think my parents ingrained it in me that like leaders are just people too. And like they both lead their own companies and I think like have a culture with their teams where, I mean, obviously they're going to call the shots, but they're also like kind of on equal footing and we'll talk things through and like brainstorm together and whatever. So I think I've just seen that a lot. And whenever I notice people that I work with, like especially junior level, newer to the workforce people feeling very like intimidated because the CEO is going to be on this call, or very like, oh my goodness, I just met the VP and like, I tripped over my words. Oh my gosh. It's like, remember that they're people. Remember that they started their careers and were in the same shoes you're in back in the day. Like they probably have a lot of times they have kids and their kids are now like entering the workforce maybe. And they have empathy for it because they see it in their young kids. Like all of these things, they're people with full lives who have made mistakes, who have seen people they love make mistakes. Like it's okay to not be perfect around them. And it's okay to treat them like they are not this perfect, like on a pedestal figure either. And I get really irrationally annoyed when I see people doing that because I just think it's like self-limiting, you know? So it happened at work this week.
Okay. You get annoyed when you see people putting others on a pedestal.
Yeah. Like for no good, even celebrities, although I don't know, that's something that I haven't explored as much in my brain. So I don't have as much to say about it, but just anyone, it's like, they are a person that you don't know what's going on behind the like image that you see and the leader that you're revering. And I feel like a hack to actually developing and growing more in a career, for example, is to see those people as human, because you will actually form like better, more trusted, more like direct and open communicative relationships with them, where you will if you grow because of that, you know?
If you interact with them as if you are on their level, which you are because you're a person, it says, it does a lot, I guess, psychologically.
Right.
It's so hard to do. I can't do it. I can't do it in the workplace, which is why I was just like, no more coworkers for me. I won't have any, no, I won't work with anyone any longer. But
and that's fair too. That's a fair, like knowing yourself is also important. If that's a hard thing for you to do, then
I think it's the field. I mean, if it's a field I feel incompetent in, then I gave up on that. I eventually just got very comfortable. It took so much energy for me to feign confidence in tech that I just started giving myself permission to announce to everybody how bad I was. Did it all the time. I was like, it's exhausting to keep this to myself. Like, let's just start saying it next.
What did people say? How did people react to that? I feel like we've talked a little bit about this, but I am so fascinated because you've shared that with me before, how you felt like you were like the least intelligent person on the team and like didn't know what you were doing compared to other people. So how would you say things like that? And then how would they react?
didn't feel like I was the least intelligent, but at least like the least skilled, which also is
Right.
factually true. I started in that career. I was only a few years into that career, and other people had been doing it, you know, since they graduated college or whatever. So it was factually less experienced.
Yeah.
Um, and really the biggest limiter was that I just wasn't that interested in it. Like it's so hard to really work at something you're not that interested in. It is
Yeah.
probably the most draining thing. So it's my fault, all my fault. And I'd also at a certain point decided I didn't want to grow. When I went into tech, I did have the idea that like I can make this into a lifelong career. And then that eventually switched. And then once I kind of decided not trying to grow here, don't know what's going to happen. Maybe I'll do design, maybe I'll do grow on YouTube. I don't know, but tech is not where I'm going to grow. Then I think that's kind of the point where I was just like, it's exhausting to try and talk myself up all the time.
Yeah.
Um, and my boss she was really, really an interesting person. Some of the best leadership I've ever worked with at my last company. And, but she also there's a man and a woman who like led the company together. They were both great and both very different. But one thing she did is she sometimes stepped into a therapist mode, which it had a lot of benefits in the company because it was like very reflective, very showing up as a person. She would always encourage me to share my feelings and what I was working on projects outside of work and this and that. And what are you thinking about? What's stressing you out? And it actually, as someone who's very open, you ask me a question, I'll answer it. I'll
Right.
answer it. And that was great. And then it eventually got to a place where I was like, I'm way oversharing here. Like, I know I
Mm,
was oversharing. And she was not over digging, but she would just like ask and ask as much as you would talk. And was always doing check ins about like, how are you feeling about work this week to everybody? Like, what's great about work? What's bad about work? What's this? What's that? And it's like, those things are going to fluctuate week to week. I actually didn't, it was really nice that she cared to know what was energizing us. Do we want to be switched off a project? What were we feeling interested in? What do we want to change? What are we hating? But first of all, I don't think you can give like thoughtful reflections on that weekly. It's
yeah.
too much. I'm trying to do
Yeah.
my fucking job, and I'm trying to do it badly, but I'm really busy doing that. And it also became, I had to learn the lesson actually from other coworkers. They were like, "Yeah, you actually don't owe your boss every thought and feeling about your work." It became too much, and it was hard for me to learn to draw a line. It was a very specific scenario. Loved her, adored her, learned so much. Like anything good I've learned about self-respect, self-advocacy, work-life balance, healthy communication at work or outside, so many different things. It really became like a personal relationship, but I had to learn this really weird lesson of drawing a personal boundary. And it's not like she was prying, she was doing it in the name of a
Yeah.
healthy work culture. Am I painting a picture of
Yeah.
this?
You are, and I really
It was
relate to
really
it.
it was really interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I really relate to it because I've noticed this with companies where they've had a very like family like culture almost like you are one of their
Yeah.
kind and they want to create a space where you can be open about how you're feeling about work. And I've been really actually, I do consider myself lucky to have worked a lot of places like that. But the flip side to it is that you end up sharing so much about your frustrations. And sometimes, like you said, those frustrations are fleeting, like they change week to week. But if you voice them and put words to them to someone else, it makes it feel like a much bigger problem than maybe it even is. And so then
Yeah.
they might over index on that and want to check with you next week or create a solution to it or whatever, talk to other people
Yeah.
about it. And it just like can snowball in a way that if you had just taken some time to like simmer down about it and nobody really asked you about it, and a month later there was a conversation about that experience, like you might not feel the same way and it might be something that like completely blew over. I just
Totally.
feel like having friends at work, having like that type of emotionally open relationship with a boss, very very good things to a point, but then they can almost like kind of self implode, like become like a self fulfilling prophecy where you're
You're caught up in it.
putting a voice to like the little frustrations in your head, and then they escalate because you put voice to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, it's funny because I think before experiencing that, I would have thought like all communication and all emotions and all truth and honesty is great everywhere all the time. No, no, there
Yeah.
really are different rules in that ecosystem, which I guess probably everyone's already figured that out. But I was like 27 for the first time working in a corporate situation. I was making all these mistakes that I feel like a 22-year-old would make, but I was just doing it way later because I was just was so it was such a different world from acting. I was like,
Yeah.
oh, you guys don't just like make a habit of sexually like abusing people here. It's so crazy.
Yeah. I don't think, though, I would give yourself more credit, because I do think that that's something that people struggle with at any like any level in their career. It's because you might not encounter somebody like that in your first job. So you
Yeah.
don't, even if you've been in the corporate world for longer, since you were 22, whatever, you might not just encounter that type of culture until later. I also think that like in the last 3-4 years, that type of culture has become even more prominent and popular, and like that's what
Yeah.
people look for at work: a more inclusive place, a place where they can speak their minds freely, a place where emotions are allowed. And like, again, I'm down for all of that, but it is kind of like new to that
Yeah.
world, and
I feel like
people
people
don't
haven't
know the
figured out.
lines.
I feel like people haven't, all good intentions probably, but like I think people haven't figured out how exactly it needs to look there. Yeah,
Yeah.
because it doesn't need to look different than your private life.
And it's weird because I think different people have different preferences too. Like, even at my work right now, I have some people on my team who are really big on like, let's share personal updates with each other. Let's, at the beginning of our check-ins, have like 10 minutes of personal chatter followed by whatever the agenda was. And I
Yeah.
can understand where it's coming from. It's also a fully remote company, so we
Why
don't
does
really
it
see each
always
other in
feel annoying
person.
though? It
It
always feels
is.
like just a waste of fucking time. I
That's how I
I
feel.
immediately I immediately groaned as soon as you said it.
I
I'm
hate
like,
it. I hate
we already have to be on this Zoom call. Like, I already have to be in a meeting. Like, this is not making me feel more connected to you. Like, I just
I
don't feel
know.
connected to you. Like, let's get the meeting over shorter, not drag out the meeting longer.
Totally. I just hate up top small talk. When there's an agenda, we work together. Let's like look at the agenda, talk about it. And if we're done with the call in 20 minutes instead of 30 minutes, great. Let's
Yeah.
hang up the phone, instead of being like, oh, well, we always have extra time, so now let's
Oh
chat.
my God.
It's one of those, but I do
Then,
know it's
yes.
coming from a good place. Like, we all work remotely at my company and at a lot of companies now. We don't have the in-person like water cooler talk that you used to have. And I also have to be honest that like I am a person that enjoyed that. I'm such a people person. I love to like chat with someone in passing in the kitchen when I used to have
Yeah.
office jobs. So I am that type of person. And also, at this stage in my career, at a job that's fully remote, where I just want to like do the work and be done, and where it's not only about that, but it's also just like time on phone calls and time on Zoom meetings
Yes.
is
So
draining.
draining.
And yeah, and like takes up too much of the day, takes away from the time I have to like do my focused work. So all of those
Yeah.
things accumulate to be like, I just don't want to do this with you. But how do you say that, or how do
How are
you
they not
show
noticing that it
that?
obviously doesn't feel like anything? Like
I
they
don't
are also the
know.
ones doing it. They are also the ones who feeling like how empty you feel. Like everyone feels the same way about it. And I'm laughing because it's such a like a poor attempt at like, of course it's the obvious thing that you try, but it's actually such a poor attempt at replicating water cooler banter. Because like if you think about the interactions in an office or in a shared space, it's not me spinning around in my desk chair, looking at you straight in the face while we make full unbroken eye contact and me saying what I did that weekend. Like
Yeah.
it's something happens and like I can still keep working and I say something over my shoulder and like I can walk away at any point. It's not just like a staring contest where we recite facts of our timeline. Like
Yeah.
it's so completely off.
I
Yeah.
know, totally. And you're right. Like, how do they not feel that they're not getting met with the same energy? Because that really is what happens in these moments. Maybe like
I mean,
two
I
out
don't
of
have a
five
better
people on a call.
recommendation.
That's the thing. Maybe 2 out of 5 people on the call are like excited to do this. And then everyone else is just just playing along because they've been asked to. But it's funny when it comes around to me in those situations, it's like my turn to update about my personal life. I'm like,
What do you say?
literally the last time it happened, I was like, well, Rihanna performed at the Super Bowl last night. So that was like really personally life changing. Like I just made it about like pop culture the same way.
Yeah.
there's a clip from The Office of Kelly
She's like, well,
Kapoor.
Rihanna, I can give you an update about Rihanna.
Yeah.
Rihanna is now 8 months pregnant.
Exactly.
And that is very exciting for me.
There's a thing in The Office where Kelly Kapoor, Jim asks Kelly how she's been, and she talks about like
Yeah.
Ben and Jennifer Affleck getting back together or whatever, and like this, that, the other. He's like, no, but how are you? And she's like, I just told you. Like that's her life. So that was kind of like the angle that I approached it with, because I just don't feel like sharing a lot of my personal life. I think I would rather get back to my day and my work. There are some people on my team, that being said, that like I've formed more personal connections with, and I'll have a side conversation with them and say like, oh, this weekend I'm doing this or whatever. But like on the meeting with the whole team, I don't want to, but they can't. I don't know. There is no better way in this new age of remote work, or I'd love to know if there is. I'd love to know if someone's figured it out, but I haven't seen it.
Oh my God. The forced happy hours, the Zoom happy hours.
Oh.
The best was there was this guy on our team who I absolutely treasured. Like he must be protected. But he would get on to share life update, and someone would be like, well, I'm like putting up a fence in the backyard, like spent a lot of the weekend in the garden. I'd be like, well, I'm working on a new YouTube video. And he'd be like, my wife and I are sleeping on the couch, like separate beds. We're getting a divorce. He was giving us like step-by-step updates about his marriage falling apart. And like how his wife like cheated on him with like and
You're
got
joking.
pregnant by some like underage kid. Like I don't know, the whole thing was so crazy. And it was like a crazy story. It was like or no, I think she like cheated on him with like a stepbrother or something, like her stepbrother. I don't know, it was a crazy story, and he was giving us all the updates.
Oh my God, this poor guy. He just like needed to vent.
So open. He was so open. He would always say things in meetings. Like he was so dear. Everyone like adored him, but he would say things in meetings where our boss would frequently have to be like that was an overshare, which I guess he can share if he wanted. But then he'd have other moments in meetings where he'd say something where he'd be like, I think we're doing some like co-working scenario, communicating in the office, and he would be like, I think of you as my wife, you might be like my wife. And he would just say these things that were so inappropriate that but everyone know how well he means. And my boss would just have to be like, I do have to like state that I don't agree with that statement, but we can move forward. She'd be like, I do have to be shown acknowledging what you just said, and I can't approve it. But
wow.
Yeah,
I've never encountered anything like that, but he sounds like a sweetie. I wish him all the best.
Talk about a sweet kook. Yeah.
It is timing to be talking about like remote work and Zoom happy hours and all that, because I saw on my Instagram today, you know how it sometimes pops up with memories of like what you've posted on your stories in previous years on the same date. Today, March 17th is when we're recording this episode, is basically like 3 years from when the pandemic all started and everything shut down. And there was a picture that I had posted on my story of like me out for a walk, like social distancing, whatever. It was like pre-masks. It was like a week later, they shut down all the parks in Chicago. I couldn't even go for a walk in the park anymore for a couple months. Anyway, yeah, this is the anniversary of that. So
I can't believe that was only 3 years ago. Doesn't it seem like it was 10 years ago?
Yeah.
In a way.
It really feels like a different life because we changed so much about our lives. And now we're like trying to change back. I'm struggling with changing back, I'll be honest. Like,
what are you trying to change back to? I'm not trying to go back. I'm trying to go back.
I think when it comes to, and I've talked about this a little bit or like in certain ways on the podcast before, when it comes to socializing again, I've just become a lot more introverted than I ever have been before as a result of these past 3 years. And I think it's partly these past 3 years, it's partly getting older and like reprioritizing things, but I kind of miss a lot of that in-person interaction that I used to have constantly pre-pandemic. And I'm trying to find this balance for myself as a historically extroverted person who's more introverted now and like okay with that. Also, our world is more like, I don't know, more geared towards introversion, I think, now than it was before. And I'm cool with all that, but I still want some of the
flavor
stuff I used to do before. And it's hard. It's actually like hard to do it. I went out for dinner with some friends last night who were like my go-to friends during the pandemic. We saw each other every Friday, like outdoor grilling or something that was like safe to do. And they were like my family in Chicago during that time. And now I like barely ever see them. And we got dinner last night and it was so nice. But we were all talking about like, I don't know. There was a weird, like, we couldn't see anyone. Then we could see people outside. And that was like, we did that a lot for a while. And now we're back to a weird thing of like, just not socializing in the same ways, not having the same energy for it. I can't pinpoint exactly what it is. But I'm navigating
no, I know what you
it.
mean. No, I definitely also feel it. I think it's become, I think I'd associated it less with the cultural changes of the pandemic because in that time I also had so many other big, like I moved,
Changes.
I left a relationship, I changed cities. But you are right, 100%. There are cultural changes of the pandemic that I think I wasn't even appreciating in that way. Like the energy that we had in the beginning of quarantine, as opposed to now, like kind of, I think there you have I experienced microcosms of that. I was just talking to my brother about this. Like we can both do that thing where we just self-isolate and forget to leave the house for so long. And if I force myself out, I did it this past week. I hadn't seen anyone in days, hadn't got out of pajamas in days. And I was like, I wanted to just stay in and work some more that evening, but I was like, bitch, do your fucking hair, put on some fucking makeup. You're putting on a dress right now and you're going out to dinner alone. I don't care if anyone's around, you're going to dinner. And I like sat myself at a bar and had dinner.
Good job.
And it was shocking, as it is every time. It was shocking to remember what society is like. It was like, oh, this is good. And if you just spend enough time away from it, you forget and it gets harder and harder to re-enter. And it gets harder and harder to even remember the thing that you're missing exactly until you run into someone at the 7-Eleven and it's like the best interaction of your week, like paying for your Reese's cup. But I do think there's another aspect for you and I, our age. Like we went into the pandemic at a certain age and we came out. This is the age where like all of a sudden everyone decided they're getting married and there are huge shifts that happen culturally, maybe not culturally, like life stage wise, that happen with socializing when people are making those shifts. So I do feel like, I kind of feel like that's also a thing. Like all of a sudden, all my friends, I realized all my friends are in relationships or married, every single one.
Yeah, I think you're right. It's like hard to admit that that's part of it, but it's definitely part of it. The couple I referenced that I had dinner with last night is now engaged. When the pandemic started, they were just starting to date. So they were like going out a lot more. And it was important to them to like meet each other's friends and stuff. Now we're all friends already. We got it. Check the box and settle in. And you're engaged now. And
I really want to introduce you to my friends. Really want to introduce you to my friends so that we can never see them again. It's kind of what happens. It kind of is
a little bit. So I do think it is exacerbated by the age and like life stage that we're at. And I think that part is the reason why I have less. That explains the part of me that doesn't really have a problem with this shift, to be honest. Like, I'm actually kind of comfortable with this, at least right now. I feel kind of comfortable with like the shifting life stages that are happening with my friends. I feel like I'm very focused right now on kind of like career aspirations and building a business and like things that I've really dreamt of for a long time for myself. And so if that looks like getting engaged or having kids or something for my friends, I'm cool with the fact that we all are doing these things in our own lanes right now, because I have something that I'm giving myself to in its own way.
Yeah, I wouldn't trade it.
Right. But I think the part that is still bugs me about it is more associated with like just how drained I am from those 3 years of changing everything about life during the pandemic. And yeah, like I feel like I've lost, I don't know if I'm grieving an old version of myself or if I've lost some of it but can get it back, or like want to get it back, you know? Like I think I've lost some of my energy for in-person gathering, and on one hand I still go out and do things, don't get me wrong, and like when I do, it fills up my cup and it's great, and I'm also happy to chill at home by myself and focus on my stuff. Like I don't know, there's better balance maybe, but what was my
There's
point?
something you're missing still. You're still missing
There's
something.
still
You're
something
feeling
that's
something
missing.
you want to adjust.
Yeah. And I
Yeah.
don't know
Yeah.
if it's
Yeah.
something that I have to just be like, I guess that's how it is now. I don't think
Oh
I
no,
don't think I
I don't
do.
think you ever no, I don't think you ever have to. Even me, like even talking about changes from pandemic or our life stage, I don't think you ever I don't think those I don't say that to mean like accept it, this is the
Right.
end. Like no, I think you there's always ways to keep problem solving and get creative, and it takes a lot of energy. I'm still signing, I'm solving this problem right now for myself. I realized I was missing the one thing I don't really have in my life is like group socialization. And
Yeah.
that's a very specific kind of nutrient to me. I realized I actually have a bunch of friends, or like the correct number for me, of deep relationships that are meaningful relationships. I'm like, I'm solid, don't need no more. These are
Yeah.
great. So lucky. Deep family relationships, like great. Working relationships, I love, amazing. But they're all like one on one. And I'm very much missing, even though sometimes a group, like a group friendship circle, a group thing is a little almost more superficial. It's just a different thing that I do also need. And I'm drained without it. Like I need that. So I'm trying to organize some random shit. Like I'm trying to problem solve it right now. And I think it's a mistake to just be like, well, this is how it is now and I'm miserable forever. Like keep working on it. Keep working on anything.
Yeah.
But it's really exhausting. I
I
really
relate to
feel
the
that.
group. I relate to the group thing. I actually
I'm
like,
over this one-on-one shit. It is the
right.
most, I'm like, I cannot have a fucking one-on-one. It's like really draining to me to do it. If that's the only way I see people, it's
Yep.
draining
Well,
sometimes,
and
even
it
if it's
just
the
like,
person I love most.
it eats up your schedule too, because if you have to
Oh,
schedule a bunch of one-on-ones, then like you're booked out for months before you get to see everyone you want to see, as opposed to like doing something as a group. You kind of, I hate to say check the box, but like you get everyone in one place and you get that like hit of socialization and seeing
no.
all your people, and it's like one night and you're done, or a
Yes.
couple weekend plans and you've
Very
gotten your
different.
fix. It's very different, and I love
Mm-hmm.
group stuff, and that is something I'm totally missing too. Like something
Very
that I
much
know
so.
about myself is that in groups I thrive. I love to be like standing in a circle with a group of friends at a bar, at a party, and like talking shit and making people laugh. Like that is my element. I love it, and I have not had it in so long, and I do think
Very
that's the
different.
part of myself that I
Yeah.
feel I'm losing and I want back, and I
And
don't know how.
it's a big deal. I'm like trying to organize some like more regular group things, sign up for some group things. Like you just got to throw some shit up on the wall. It's not all going to stick. I don't have the answer, but you're not alone in trying to solve it. There's also something to hanging out in a group where like, you don't have to talk for 50% of the time.
Yes,
You can just chill and like observe the fucking dynamic and the
you're so right.
situation. And so you don't have to carry 50% of the hang. Like it's just a different, it's actually, even with those people I love, it's a different way of getting to interact with them. It's a different way of getting to see them with other people too. Like it is another way of loving people. But I feel like I feel like I'm kind of all of my friends' single friend. And I feel
Mm,
like they have relationships, they have a friendship circle, a lot of them. And I'm like the person they go to when they need a one on one hang, and love all of them. And I'm like, I cannot be that in all of my friendships because
totally.
it means I don't have days to myself. I'm tired all the time. Like, I'm also still missing the group thing. I also feel like it should be a rule. I feel like it should be a fucking rule that if you're married, congratulations to you. Don't care. Congratulations. I guess we applaud that. If you're married, You are not allowed to ask your single female 30-year-old friends to hang out one-on-one more than 50% of the time. You better fucking invite me to a group event. You better fucking invite me somewhere where there's a single man. I don't care. You're not allowed to just decide you only see me like one-on-one all the time. It's illegal. This is a law now. It's illegal.
I think that's a great rule. Although when I was single, I feel like I would constantly be asking friends who are in relationships, like, you know, does your partner have a friend that I could meet, or like invite me to parties that you go to with people or whatever.
I think I've asked,
and they never do.
I've asked. No, they never do. No, I feel like I'm trying to introduce to people and like connect people I love all the time, whether as friends or romantically. I feel like I'm doing that all the time. And I feel like I have even asked, and people feel inconvenient. Well, I don't know. It doesn't benefit me. Like, I'm kind of annoyed.
Well, I also think something that I heard a lot was like, oh yeah, I guess the only single friend that I really have is like so-and-so, and that wouldn't work for you. He's not a match for you. Like, you're better than him, whatever. They thought that all their single guy friends were like pieces of trash. And I was like, first of all, let me decide that for myself. Let me be the judge. If he's trash, okay, fine. Feed him to me and I will see if he's trash or not. But also,
I say who's trash.
Yeah. It's also just like, I don't know. I appreciate that you have such a high view of me, but like, I'm asking you to get me out there, and you have resources I don't have.
I'm not even asking to date people. I'm asking to be like, I would like to be integrated in your life in a different way that isn't just like always one-on-one staring at each other over a plate of food. Like, well, 100%. Can we be integrated in each other's lives in a different way? Yeah, I don't know. So many
when you're on a one-on-one, like, not only are you carrying 50% of the conversation, but that also means that you're having to give so much of yourself. Like, you're having to open up about things that maybe you don't feel like opening up about that day. Like, in order to fill 50% of a conversation with one other person who's a close friend, you're not always in the mood to like update them on everything and tell them how you've been feeling about this and whatever. Sometimes you just want to have fucking fun.
Let's go do something. Let's go interact with the world instead of just the catch up.
The catch up. I am tired of catch ups. I'm tired of catch ups.
Nothing is new with me. I hate everyone, and my job is the same, and I'm like scared of the dark. Like, these are constants. They're constants.
Nothing has ever been new. I hate that question. Actually, I wrote something down along these lines because I was talking to a friend about this last week. And
do I sound like a bitch?
No.
Do I sound like a bitch? Are all of my friends who listen to this going to be mad at me?
No, I talk to my friends about this stuff. I think people are feeling this, and if they haven't talked about it, it's because they're afraid they're going to come off like a bitch. But I think everybody's feeling and thinking this. You and I are different levels.
I've said this.
You and I are different levels of like, you're more introverted, I'm more extroverted, and we're both feeling this. I'm in a relationship, you're not. We're both feeling this. Like, it's relevant to people. That's how I think about it.
Listen. I only see people I want to see. If I'm seeing you, it's because I love you and I want to see you. I don't see people. Listen to me right now. Listen to me. I don't see people that I don't want to see. I don't spend time with people I want to see. If I'm seeing you, I love you. And maybe I also want to see you in a group. I just want to get you in a new outfit. Okay.
Right. She does.
That's it.
That she does. Put on your birthday suit. No, it's true. Seeing people in groups, it's the same thing as like when you start to date someone, you have a bunch of one-on-one dates, but then eventually you want to see how they are in a group, because you want to see how they interact with other people. It's like a different type of humor. It's like a different energy. It's the same with friends. It's a different way
to be with people. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Yeah. I was talking to my friends about this a little bit and saying how much I hate catch-ups, and like, when somebody asks me what's new with you, I'm like, what the fuck? Like, it's the same. Everything's the same. I'm changing every day, but like, I can't explain those little intricacies to you. Either I don't know about them because they're happening.
I couldn't begin to explain to you how much I'm changing. Where do I begin? You sit down. You sit down and shut up. I'll tell you how I'm changing.
Yeah, it's like, I'm not the same as the last time I saw you. And also, I have nothing to say about that. And one of my friends was like, instead of saying just how are you or what's new with you, a good question to ask is just like, what did you do this week? Or like, what are you, like, make it more specific.
Is that a better question?
It's not an amazing question, but I do think it's better than the broad what's new.
What's new?
Is very difficult. the like, oh, what were you up to yesterday or something. It just starts, even if they're like, well, I was working all day and this and that, maybe that opens a conversation. If they're like, oh, I went to the gym and then I ran some errands. I don't know. You have more content to build off of and like make a conversation around, instead of the what's new that's like, yeah, work's good. This is good. I'm tired all the time. Like, there's nothing to say about that. Get more specific.
Yeah.
I guess that's what
Okay.
the guidance is like, get more specific with the questions. Don't ask me what's new. I'm not going to answer it. I have nothing to share.
I have nothing to share. Everything and nothing. You can only imagine. Oh, if only you wish you knew what's new.
I know. I wish I knew what's new.
I'm making it really hard for my own friends to talk to me by everything I complain about. I think a lot of my friends, I found a lot of my friends from listening to the podcast, a lot of my best friends are scared to text me now. And I'm like, no, not you. Like, I hate texting with people who like aren't my friends, or like dragging on something that we don't need to. Listen, I don't know what to say. This podcast will probably be the end of all my friendships.
No,
whatever,
the good ones stay. The real ones stay. I have encountered a similar thing though, where like people will be like, oh, I was wondering when you talked about XYZ, like who you were referring to, or if it was me. It's like, sometimes most of the time, I just have theories and like viewpoints that are just about the human race, and it's not about a specific person. When I'm talking about it, I'm not like actively thinking about a person that this is true of, like 9 times out of 10. I don't know. Everybody has those things, but not everybody has a podcast. So that's the difference.
I know. Yeah. It's hard. It's funny. Yeah, there was one story I shared where I was like trying to protect. It was about someone who doesn't even listen to the podcast. And I was just like referencing something about their relationship, but I still wanted to like protect their privacy or whatever. So I like concealed and like changed some details, but then I changed it into like a generalized way where a different friend then thought it was about them. And, oh, I had a thought. Oh, it's gone.
Wow. Wait. It always happens to us.
Was I talking?
Just like that. You're talking about how a friend thought that something was about them that wasn't actually about them.
But the friend who thought it was about them, she's a writer, and we had the whole conversation about it, and she was like, girl, I was like, it's really hard putting out content about your life when I'm not gonna talk about people. I'm not going to share other people's information. I'm not going to probably talk about family because it's like too personal. I'm not going to, I've been told by certain men, I've been broken up with by men because for, whatever reasons, I can't share stuff about men. And it's like, it's actually amazing that anything is getting onto this podcast.
Yeah.
And she was very sweet about it. She was just like, please share anything about me. She writes, and she was like, this is not a new problem. Like, I pull from my life all the time in my writing. It just isn't broadcast to people. But it's, I think my sister's sharing how Hemingway lost like a ton of friends because he just like, was it Hemingway? I don't know.
That tracks for Hemingway. The little I know about Hemingway.
Put like all his friends on blast and like without like concealing anything in like one of his books. I don't remember. I didn't really pay attention when she was talking, so
but that's not the way that you lose friends. No, I've been I wouldn't call it struggling with this, but I've been just like thinking about this lately, because another reason that I'm feeling this way about like I kind of want to get out more, like I feel like I'm not as extroverted, is because I feel like I have less content to talk about. Like some weeks there's more, some weeks there's less. That's the way life goes. But I feel like my life the past couple of weeks has been very in my apartment working on something like most hours. And then when I'm not doing that, I'm either at the gym or like relaxing, whether it's with my boyfriend or with a best friend or by myself. Like I'm not doing a lot of like interesting things worth stories. Yes.
You don't have reflections to share. What was that saying? Like you can't, the first step to writing the book is living a life. Or
exactly.
Like
and I was just like, how do content creators, madam, how do you do that? Like, how do you come up with things to talk about every single week when like some weeks are just boring weeks, and you want to protect certain parts of your life, and so it's
Yeah.
like a nascent ideas and nascent feelings that you're having. It's really quite difficult, and I'm
Yeah.
trying to grapple with like, how can I make sure that I live more? I also want to live more and want to do more fun things. Like, I'm always loving that, but sometimes I just don't have the time or space for it. And
Mhm.
but then it like stunts my creativity and stunts the stories I can share and the reflections I have and all of that. It's really a difficult thing to figure out.
It
I
is.
relate.
I mean, I think for the most part, like a lot of content creators just make their content about a subject matter and it's not personal at all. You
Yeah.
do interior design, you just talk about the design. You and I have made the explicit decision to make this podcast about absolutely nothing at all. So it's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to distract from the personal stuff. But I think that's also why a lot of my content ends up being like a rant, or it's like, well, I can't talk about these personal relationships, and I don't want to talk about every personal feeling while it's live processing. I need some space before I can talk about it, and
Right.
I can't really talk about the ins and outs of dating because people be breaking up with me over it. And so I'll just scream about chocolate,
Yeah.
and I'll scream about, I talk about things then instead, which is stuff I like to talk about anyway. But
Yeah.
I feel like that's been the safe territory. It's like, well, sanitary pads aren't going to end their relationship with me if I share our rapport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. The funny thing too is that people seem to enjoy that too. Like, talking about sleep pants and whether we wear them or not is to me such a random thing that like we could have easily cut that out of last week's episode
The
and
amount
neither
of
of us would have
time,
been upset.
the amount of time that I spent after last week's episode, where most of it was spent talking about like Jess's and I's very different feelings about parenthood, which I'm so proud of us having that conversation,
Yeah.
because I feel like that's the most special thing about us, is that we feel so differently about so many things. And yet that doesn't mean we can't be fucking friends. And it doesn't mean we can't support each other, which I feel like is a novel fucking idea these
Mm,
days. And it makes me proud to be like, on a really emotional topic, on a very personal topic, you and I can still feel very differently, and it actually doesn't mean I have to unchoose you as a person.
yeah.
My God.
Yeah.
But I spent so much time emotionally prepping Jess and myself for, like, I was like, the people are going to come for us for this one. We got to prepare ourselves for the backlash. We got to prepare ourselves for the Instagram comments, blah, 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 blah. This is what they're going to do. This is what they're going to say. It's going to really hurt. And then the only comment we got, didn't get a single comment about parenting. The only comment we got was about sleep pants.
It was actually so affirming of the community that we have growing here. I was like, I kind of felt
What
like
did
an
it say about
asshole.
them? What does it say about them?
Well, I kind of felt like an asshole that I was assuming that they were going to come for me, but I don't know. I was just like, or maybe it was reaffirming, maybe it was affirming of the fact that like the topic of parenthood, like people have really become more accepting or about that, or at least the people that are listening to this, or maybe the fact that you yelled on the episode and were like, we don't want outsiders to sway Jess into, maybe that's what did it. I don't know what did it, but I was very like I was both like shook that there were so few comments about that, and it was really only about the random ass shit we threw into the episode to fill up time. And I was also like delighted because I was like, well, that makes me just feel more comfortable to actually maybe start to share a little more here, which I think we do a fair amount of sharing, but it's just like
Yeah.
the lines are forever blurry and confusing, and the response we're going to get is always unpredictable, and that we thought it was going to be in a negative way, but it ended up being like a very hilarious realization
Yeah.
to have. I don't know. Anyway, with all that said, should we throw in a fucking random thought about a thing that's not feelings related?
Yeah, I have one too. Give me one.
Okay. I have a new slogan that I've been using with my boyfriend where I go, thank me and spank me.
How do you say it? Do you say it with the pause, or how do you like say it
The
for
first
real
time I
now?
did
Like you
it,
would say it to him.
yeah, the first time I did it, it was not premeditated. It just like came out of me. I was like, oh my God, this rhymes. I said thank me about something that I did for him. So I was like, thank me, and paused, and like he gave me a kiss or something. And then I was like, and spank me. And he was like, no, we're not doing this. We're not doing this. I'm not doing this. And I was like, that really just came to me in the moment. I'm such a fucking improviser. Like, and now I'm saying it constantly about everything. And he's
Can't
obliging.
spank
I'm
me.
getting plenty of thanks and spanks, but he's not happy about it. And I wanted to share it with the class. Try it out. Piss off your boyfriend.
A begrudging oblige.
Yeah. Yeah.
Good.
That's
I love how you're branding your relationship. You're bringing all those marketing skills to your relationship.
I feel like that's what he said. He was like, this is not part of the brand. This is not part of the brand. And I was like, it's part of the brand. I mean,
It's
I'm
part of
just
the brand until he comes out with another slogan.
right.
Slogan.
You can offer something, or you can just oblige.
Yeah.
You're here for my whims. That's how I feel. That was just a quick fucking thing, but tell me about something more more
No,
substantial.
no, I don't have anything more substantial than that. How could you be more substantial than that? I also
Right.
love that. Yeah, it's good. The more substantial thing that you're referring to is that I was just going to share a
A
turn
hack?
off.
A
A
turn
new,
off.
no, not a
I was
hack.
like, what other sweaty limbs do you have?
It's really just my feet. But yeah, I'm just writing down petty turnoffs as I see them. I got sideswiped by one in the gym the other day,
Oh my
which
God.
is a V-neck tee.
You hate.
A V-neck. I'm not kidding when I say it's a deal breaker. I don't think I'm not kidding. I'm not kidding.
I have questions.
I don't think I've ever touched a man who wore a V-neck
I have
in front of me.
questions.
Okay.
In my head, there's two types of men's V-neck tees. There's the deep V-neck, and there's the V-neck that like almost looks like it's a crew neck, but it has a little bit of a bend
No,
at the front.
no,
Both bad.
they're both bad.
It is weird for someone to wear one of those at the gym. I will say
It was
that.
first of all, it was completely inappropriate outfit call for the gym. So bad judgment, I would say, would flex on bad judgment, and stupid as hell. This is something that I think for most of my petty turnoffs, there is a deeper philosophy behind it. But I just hate the V-neck.
I feel like you have a lot of t-shirt opinions for men.
It's
Like,
a lot
what
of
was
t-shirt opinions.
you like long sleeve
Yes.
crew necks?
Again, long sleeve crew. Walked into when I took myself out to dinner, my solo date the other night. Walked into this pizza place, sat at the bar, and there was a guy across the room sitting there in a crew neck long sleeve tee, and I literally said out loud, "I'm fucked." And then I was like, it was one of those things where it's one of those things where I was like, "Oh, you're speaking out loud. You have to sit down." I was just like, "I'm fucked."
Did you talk to him?
No, of course not. Certainly not. He's probably
Yeah.
dead now.
Yeah, you didn't look him up on AirDrop. God damn it. Come on, do what I teach you.
I did have a funny I don't know, moment sitting at that bar where there was like that guy fucked me guy was sitting there with a friend, and then there was like another guy pair sitting at the bar, and they were kind of cute. But I very quickly realized that they were a gay couple. But I kept doing this weird thing where I kept just the way I was looking, and I was just observing people. I like kept making eye contact with one of the gay guys.
Mm.
And I was like, God, that's so weird. Like I wasn't checking him out. I was just watching people interact, and I was so intrigued by this gay couple. They were just like having a great time, and they were fun to watch. And I was like, oh, I don't want this guy to think I'm interested in him. He's clearly gay. And then and then some people came in to meet them, and the couple got up and introduced themselves, and they weren't a couple at all. They were just brothers. But something about their interaction, and it was the weirdest twist where I wanted to be like, excuse me, I need to let you guys know you're brothers. Like you guys act like you're dating. Something about you is so romantic.
Wow, you can't go out together anymore. You got to stop going out together.
Yeah, I think maybe one of them was gay. I mean, I don't know. I don't think it wasn't just that, like, I have never seen two men sitting together before, but
Yeah.
they had such romantic energy, and they were brothers. And then for the rest of the evening, they were very loudly talking about how they're brothers. Like they said it over and over and over. And I was like, I think you might be having sex too, though. I don't
As
know.
if
There
they
was
have something to prove. That's so interesting.
It was such a weird, like my night came to like a halting stop. I was like, whoa, excuse
me. That reminded me of, it's like, it's a divergence from what you're talking about, but the gay couple reminded me at a bar. My parents, they are spending most of the year now in Florida. They have a place down there and they're retiring like in the next year. And they've been making some friends down there, which is cute because my parents have never really been like friend people. They've been very like, we work and we do things for our kids and we hang out with family, and like family is really their best friends. And they have like solid acquaintances and stuff, and they're very friendly, but they just don't have like close friends that they hang out with a lot. A lot of their close friends are also in Lebanon. Anyway, one of their key couple friends that they have is a gay couple. And my dad was saying that there's this gay bar that they go to, that this couple goes to a lot. And he and my mom really want to get the invite to go with them one time. And I was like, oh, very exciting. Yes, you should. And my dad was like, but he was like, I hope that there's nothing wrong with me saying this. I just don't know how it works. I'm worried. What do I do if I get hit on? To be descriptive for those of you who don't know my dad, he is a 5'5", bald Lebanese man who just like is the sweetest guy, but he's not going to get hit on at a gay bar, especially he's also,
why not?
Well, he's very handsome. He's got a handsome face. Don't get me wrong. Great smile on the guy. But I just feel like he's not putting out like hit on me at a gay bar energy, especially if he's there with my mom, and especially if he's wearing his wedding band, which he does all the time. So I was just like, Dad, like, why is this a concern? So I educated him on it. First of all, I was like, just so you know, I know that this is not where you're coming from, but that thought process is something that like contributes to homophobia, like straight men always thinking that they're going to get hit on by gay men. So like, no judgment. And I know that's not where you're coming from, but just so you know, like, you can say that to me. So you know, you can't say that to anyone. And then I was like, that all being said,
you're a homophobe.
Like, that all being said, I think first of all, like, you wear your wedding band. Maybe people will like look for that when they're like approaching people to hit on them at a bar.
Gay people also get married.
Exactly. So they'll look for a wedding band. But this is the other thing. I was like, Dad, if it happens, just say, thanks.
What would you say if a woman hit on you? What would you say if a woman hit on you? Like, it's the same thing.
I go, just say, thanks, I'm flattered, but I'm married. And before I could get out the words, but I'm married, my dad was like, oh, but I'm straight. And I was like, married. And he was like, oh, right, married. It's like a weird thing. He wasn't even thinking about like the fact that he's married in all of this. He was just like, but I'm straight. The fact
that he's married. Oh, that's so funny. Yeah.
It was adorable.
That's the ultimate straight boomer dad question. That'd totally be my dad's question too.
It's fair. I like really didn't, I didn't blame him for it, but the fact that they want to go, the fact that they want to go to it was cute enough. I hope that they do. So
that delights me.
We have probably like an hour under our belts, and I feel like it was all good.
I think it was pretty solid.
Yeah.
I'm going to say it was pretty solid.
Fucking sick.
For the next 30 minutes, I would like to sit and compliment ourselves about what everything we just said.
I have a question. I would like your opinion on something.
No.
Okay, you know your segment, which I realize that we don't really do the thing where we say like, I have a segment.
We just stopped when we were out of control with segments. And by the way, spoiler, none of them were segments. We were just saying things. And then all of a sudden we both just completely stopped.
I would like to bring it back.
Resurrect a segment. What's the segment?
I'm resurrecting the segment, not a personality type.
Yeah, well, that's a good one.
It's a good segment. And I think this is my opinion. But it could be changed. It could be changed. Okay. And that's all I'll say. I feel like this is not a personality type. Buying an old home and being like, we have an old mid-century home from the 1920s and it has these types of pillars and so much character. Okay, I'm happy for you that you have a home that you're excited about. and I'm sure it is beautiful and whatever. It's nothing about like the design of the home. All that stuff is like fair game. But just the fact that you bought an old home is not a personality type.
Yeah, just because you got a home with character doesn't mean that you now have
That
character.
you have
It still belongs to the home, and it's still just a thing you acquired.
that you bought.
Yeah, totally.
Okay.
It's so funny because as soon I completely agree, and it made me laugh because obviously I follow like so many design people on Instagram, and that's a very common Instagram bio to put, which is like it's sort of there because they're doing a design Instagram profile, and so they're like letting you know this is what you expect here. I'm renovating my 1920s, but it does just sound like they're explaining everything about themselves, and it's just that sentence. And
Yeah.
like, yeah.
Totally. It's relevant in specific settings. Don't like I understand the relevance for design and
But
renovation and all that. But like
people
somebody
who have made their personality.
Yes, I know somebody who this week I'm not going to give detail on who this is, but in talking about personal updates, that was the update shared. And I was like, that's not personal, and therefore I feel empowered.
Jess,
I feel empowered.
You shared about Rihanna's.
Yeah, and I feel empowered to talk about Rihanna now that you said that about yourself.
Yeah,
maybe I will keep that in.
that is the only thing you can share though, is because those updates are so dumb. It's like, what is an activity I did? But some people do make that. I'm super into design, and I can't even talk about it that much. Like,
it's like, okay, I just don't know what it means. I also I have a really hard time with decades and like knowing what decade was what. Like I just can't keep it straight. I was not good at history.
You mean architecturally, or just like you don't know about the time? You don't know about time?
I think architecturally especially, but also I'm better at it with fashion, but only up to like the 70s. And then I'm like
cultural things.
Yeah, like what was happening? Like how do I explain
I
this?
wish you could see Jess's face right now. It's her eyes have never gotten so narrowed and her mouth so puckered, trying to almost poop out a thought. What are you trying to say?
This is not a pre-planned thought for the podcast. This is something that
I can tell. I can tell this was not something you worked at.
I just mess up the decades a lot. When people are like, "Oh, this is a 70s thing." I'm like, I have to really do work in my brain to sort through like 70s. Okay, I think that's the time when there were bell bottoms and disco. Okay,
wow,
that means this. Like it doesn't come to me very quickly, and some people refer to that stuff very easily all the time.
I wonder what exactly it is that you're disconnected from, or like what the connection is or the interest is that lends itself more easily to decade related
references.
Yeah.
There is something. I feel like there's a chip in some people's brains that has that, and some people don't have that chip or something.
Well, I would say in many ways you are very of the moment, like pop. I would say you're very pop culture. You know a lot about pop culture. You know a lot about popular music. You know a lot about like popular celebrities and stuff like that. So I feel like you're very current, which I am not. I can't say I know a lot about the past either. I've just chosen to learn nothing about any time. But you know a lot about today.
I think that's true. I've always been more interested in like modern day current things. And even in history class growing up, I was like never very interested because it was just too removed from my existence. And I'm very selfish. Like I'm very like,
I hate history. Exactly. Everyone's always like, oh, history is easy. It's just like a story. I'm like, but it's the worst story. It's so boring. And everyone's boring and I'm not in it. It's just like listening to your friend tell the longest story about a trip they took. It's like, I wasn't there and it's in the past. I don't care. I'll never go to these places. Oh, wow. I hate this story so
I've
much.
never felt more seen in my whole life. Oh my God, you articulated it perfectly.
I hate history, not for history. Not for history. Not for the past.
History. I mean, yeah, like fucking no notes. That's exactly it. That's exactly the feeling. I have nothing to add. That's exactly it. I feel like tell me about me. Tell me about things that are relevant to me. I remember in history class, there would be like a glimmer of something relevant to me, like something that had to do with Lebanon, for example. And I'd be like, thank God I can breathe. I see myself in this moment, you know, otherwise, what are we doing here?
Professor, I see that none of these chapters are labeled about me. Will there be anything about me in here?
History from 1991 on. I'm locked in. I'm keyed into it. I get it. I know it. I lived it.
I know it. If you get specifically to the history of Bethesda, Maryland in 1988, 98, I thrive.
Best time of my life. Peaking. Anyway.
Best time in world history.
Yeah.
I hate history. I hate the past.
Why are we all so married to the past? I live in a building
over it. It's done.
I don't know when my building was built, but I know that I moved into it last year. And that's all I need to know. I bought these covers just about a few months ago. I hung up that portrait just recently.
I picture you saying when somebody's trying to make small talk with you at a historical society party and they're like, what do you think is the most interesting moment in the 20th century? And you go, I bought that painting 3 weeks ago at IKEA. I bought those pillow covers last month. And your turn.
That's how I feel. And now that I look around my apartment, I'm like, it really does have some architectural intrigue. Like I'm actually sure that there's something interesting about it, but I don't need to know about it. Someone knows about it and they're titillated and I don't want them to tell me, but I want them to enjoy themselves. Learning the history of a culture that is part of your background, like that's something I find more interesting. And I can understand why others
some connection to it. Yeah.
Yeah. I can understand why others like really value history in a certain way because it connects to where they come from. Like that makes sense to me. But just knowing like the French Revolution and then this and then it's like reciting the facts that we had to learn in history class.
You just recited all the facts. You just recited all the facts.
Revolution.
And all you could say was the French Revolution.
Marie Antoinette.
Like, that's it.
Napoleon. Let them eat cake.
Can't improvise anymore.
Bonaparte. He was short. Napoleon complex. That's the part I remember is like the term that I use today, which is Napoleon complex.
Yeah, that's the important stuff.
Yeah.
I've actually heard, I think I heard this recently. I thought it was really interesting that like I'm sure this doesn't explain all history files. I don't think that's the word, but like history file, whatever the pedophile for history is. Whoever wants to diddle history, is that it can actually be, for a lot of people, it can be a form of escapism when there's a certain kind of romanticizing. And a lot of people do this, romanticizing like, oh, life would have just been better in the roaring 20s. Like life was just simpler in the 70s. Life was just that. I think I do it with the 80s. I do it the most with the 80s.
Okay.
I feel like I really would have thrived in the 80s. Is that true? Probably fucking not. I would have flailed as much as I ever do.
There was no YouTube.
Yeah, well, there we go. I would have just been, I don't know what I would have been doing. I don't have anything good to say. But I think there is an aspect of escapism to it, of like not dealing with the problems of today or even with your life today. And like getting to like swim and live in the characters and the possibility of a different time.
There's certain people who really love, and there's a lot of people who really love like period piece type of movies and shows, like set in a previous time.
Boring style. I think it's called boring style.
I know. It really confuses me. It's like never something that has interested me at all, but there is such a big fan base for that type of thing. And I think it's probably because of what you just described. Like there's an element of escapism. It's so different than the world we live in today that maybe that's what, I enjoy escapism from the content that I watch, but it's more, you just
like, do it a different way. Yeah.
It shows up in a different way. Because I'm way more future driven. Let's avoid our problems by living in the future. No, I don't do that either. I don't know what I do, but I just want to laugh. Ha ha ha. That was weird. Well, I kind of have to pee and I do feel like we've been talking for a bit. So should we wrap? Do you have more things do you want to talk about?
No, we already talked about the French Revolution. That was kind of the only thing that was on my list. I don't have anything else to say.
Me too. That was the number one topic, and it took us a while to get there, but I'm glad we did. We always do. We
Yeah.
always do.
Thank God we started this history podcast so we could talk about these milestones through the events that built us, made us. I don't know. What's something stupid? What's
I
something
don't
stupid a
know.
history person would say right now?
I don't know. It's the same. It's the museum people that hate us that we already alienated. Like I'm tired
My goal, actually, this is actually my goal, is to offend so many people so routinely that everyone just gets used to it and realizes that it has never been personal and it has never been a reason to not hang out.
A million.
Somebody, what, my friends, you know how often my own friends, listen, if you're offended, you know how often my own friends are coming to me and being like, I did not like what you said. And I'm like, cool, moving on. Like, great.
Yeah.
Join the fucking waiting list.
You don't have to like it. You don't have to like it. But if you like other stuff, then you're here. And I don't know. It's just like we can exist and say things and then move on from it. I totally agree. I like how you phrased that.
Yeah. Offend them all and then no one is offended.
Yeah. Because it's not actually.
Yeah. If you personal. Like history, if your feelings are hurt and you're like, history matters. Also, I'm saying all this facetiously, obviously. Get with it. But if you're like, history matters, write in and tell us one thing that happened.
I don't want that. You know the time that I told people to write in about their breakups and you were like, not me, send it to Jess. This is one of those. You can send it to Caroline. I don't want it. I do not want any history tidbits. There are certain boundaries that I am still learning how to set, and there are certain boundaries that I can easily set. That's an easy boundary for me to set. I don't want it.
Not trying to learn. Okay, cool.
Not about that. Do the outro. You can teach me about something out. Yeah. Okay. Outro. Okay. Thanks for being here. You can find us at Not For Everyone Pod on Instagram. That's not the number 4 everyone pod. We're having a time over there all the time. So come join us. Caroline's at The Good Sitter on Instagram, and I'm at JZ DeBakey. Share this with a friend. Write us a review. Send us your what-a-do's for an upcoming episode.
We got to start reading some of the reviews. Some of the reviews be cracking me up. I think it's so annoying that you can't leave a review on Spotify, but if you listen on Apple Podcasts, the sweet kooks be cracking me up on there. We got to read some of my favorite reviews. Yeah,
I do love a lot of them. So keep sending them in. And yeah, that is a good thing to note. Some people I think have asked, can you review on Spotify? And you can't right now. You can rate though. So you can rate us. Yeah.
You can star it. Give us 5 stars or don't give us anything. Give us 5 or don't give us that. I'm not going to beat around the bush here. I'm not looking for a fucking warm 3 stars. Give me 5 stars or get the fuck out. That's
hilarious to think that people are like, oh, they asked me to rate them, so I'm going to. And then they look at the stars and they're like, 3.
You're supposed to, for. I think the correct thing to do is to be like, rate us as fairly as you can. No, give me 5 stars or get the fuck out.
I am an Uber driver that says 5 stars, please, at the end of the ride. That is all I'm here for. Thank you and good day. All right.
5 stars, please.
Talk to you soon.